Hey guys, you made it. It is challenge day. We did a lot of work creating that last experiment in terms of doing all those different drops in order to see if the height affects the distance on the ground. Today, you get to be the scientist. You get to make the decisions. You get to determine what variables you want to look at. So, what are some of the things that we could look at to determine whether or not those variables affect the speed at which the distance that it goes across the floor? Well, I was thinking about a couple of them myself. I could adjust the mass of the car, how heavy the car is. If I'm using a Matchbox car, it wouldn't be a bad idea if I took some tape and some pennies. I could figure out 1 penny, 2 pennies, 3 pennies, if that makes a lot of difference. Adding pennies to a car like this probably doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm going to want to add a lot more weight to something like this. So I got to thinking, what if I put like a water bottle on here, taped that, and then added just a little bit of water, then added more water, then added more water. I think that's a way you could change mass, or however you want to do it. You guys can figure it out. You could change the angle of the incline. If you change the angle of the incline, if it goes real steep or if it goes real steady, that could be another thing. Does that affect how far it goes along the carpet? Whatever you do, you have to be extremely careful that you only change one variable at a time. If you change the angle, but you also drop it from a higher height, well, then you don't know if it's the angle or the height that's making the difference. So you have to only change one variable at a time. If you decided you want to change the angle, you better drop it from the same height every single time. You know, you're looking at the type of surface that it goes across. All of those things, whatever the track is made out of. There's all kinds of things that you can adjust in your experiment, but you only get to adjust one thing. Okay? So in the document below, it leads you through kind of the same process we did before. You're first going to look and tell me what are all those controlled variables that you have to keep the same. If you're changing the mass, you better keep the height the same. If you're changing the angle, you better keep the height the same, and you better keep the mass the same. It depends on what you decide to do for your experiment. So what are those controlled variables? What are the independent and the dependent variable? The dependent variable is probably still going to be the distance along the floor, but what about the independent variable? What is the thing that you are actually changing? What is the experiment that you're doing? Then there's a place to put your data, so it's a good idea to keep track of all your data. Be sure you include units. If you're using inches or feet or lines on a paper, whatever you're using to measure, be sure you have that in your data table. There might be a graph that you want to make. A lot of times we're going to want to make a graph like we did last time. And your graph will tell you if those variables are related or not. If there's a line going up or even a line going down, that will tell you that there's some kind of a relationship. In the end, you're going to make a claim. You're going to make a claim about what you think is going on between those two things. Does the mass make a difference in terms of how far it goes? Does the angle? Does the type of surface? Does the type of car? Does the width of the tires or the distance between the tires if you have numerous cars? I don't know. There's lots of things. Whatever you want to do, now is the time for you to make an experiment. If you have any kind of questions or concerns, be sure that you talk about it with your teacher, and they will help you out through this. In the end, we're going to get to see all of the great things that you came up with. And I can't wait to see all the kinds of ideas that you have and how you bring those to fruition. What an exciting day. It's Challenge Day. I challenge you to really like science.